It would be a very different Australia to the Australia we know if we hadn't had Catholic schools here for now 190 years, if you go back to the first one, which was right here in our Diocese of Parramatta. Those schools were set up at a time when the Catholic community generally were very marginalised, poor.
The Irish weren't probably top of the social scale in those times. Most of them were convicts or children of convicts. Big percentage were the people who were from the families from Struggle Street, people who were pretty ordinary circumstances.
It was interesting that the first leader, George Morley, was back in 1820. He was a convict and became the first principal of the school. So it was interesting history.
You look at how successful they've been in, for instance, raising a whole class, working class, poorer group of Australians up. And that's made us a more socially cohesive country.
It may be difficult to realise now, but right up until the 1950s, practically 100% of staff in Catholic schools would have been religious brothers and sisters mainly. Even up into the early 60s, the percentage would have been 75%.
Catholic education wouldn't be here today without the Catholic brothers and nuns and priests who worked in Catholic schools. Their contribution to Catholic schools has been enormous, this is without a doubt.
So there was great heroism and generosity on the part of Catholic communities.
We are now just another part of that story. In 100 years' time, others will continue to tell that story. What I want to be sure of, that we've told the story the most powerfully that we could at this point in time. In a Web 2.0, 21st century, third millennium world, schools have never been more relevant in the lives of young people.
The emphasis now is on the student and how the student learns, and not just the content of what the student's learning. That's been a massive shift.
In terms of the students' learning, there's a great enthusiasm for learning and a thirst for learning that I haven't seen before.
We want them to be lifelong learners who are self-sufficient, who can collaborate, who can ask questions, who are problem solvers. And I think learning in this environment is really promoting that for the children.
We're developing new models of schooling, so we have to invest in those models and make sure they continue to be relevant. They will only ever stay relevant in the lives of young people when they meet the children in the world in which they live.
In the last 5 or 6 years, we've had enormous changes in technology, a huge impact on the learning and teaching.
Space or time doesn't matter, you can just connect.
When I started teaching, you worked in isolation. Now it's a much more collaborative process. It's done in partnership, it's done locally and it's done globally. And it's a really exciting time.
You're sharing some of your skills and expertise with people to help them, but also learning from other teachers in the open space with you.
I think one of the wonderful things that teachers bring is not just their knowledge, but their whole way of relating to students, to each other, to the general community, to parents, to the wider Catholic community.
As a teacher in a Catholic school, I have an opportunity to connect with the students in a spiritual way and use that as a way to foster their spiritual development and their moral development, and also my own spiritual development as well.
My life goal was to try and make a difference to the children I came across.
They want you, they want all your ideals, your hopes for the future and your hopes for them, and they want to see that lived out in the school.
We want our teachers to have a professionally rewarding working life and to give witness to their faith so that the children will experience a model of what it can be to live a Catholic life in a new age.
Our schools have to be places where the faith is vibrant, it's passionate, it's attractive, where it's very obvious visually in the school, where it's there in the curriculum, in the classroom, in the relationships, where it's modelled in the teachers and even in the students to each other.
I think the broader Australian community is always served by good citizens. And Catholic education can play a great part in creating and informing good citizens.
And we want to equip them so they can be agents of change in a rapidly changing and very dynamic world.
We've got great young people. The whole world is represented there. There's every nation, there's all the different ages, the enthusiasms, temperaments, gifts. And they're all there, ready to make the most of those buildings, those teachers and those curricula.
Catholic education is a jewel in the crown of the Church in Australia, and I'm happy to be there, to be part of that jewel.
I think the Catholic Church and the Catholic school community can be proud of its achievements. We have a great record, nearly 200 years of quality schooling, and in different times meeting different needs and different challenges. But we have prevailed, and we've prevailed because we've been sustained by a powerful story and taking seriously our responsibility as part of that evangelising mission of the Church. We're on about proclaiming good news. That's why Catholic schools exist.